people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It's official. Estelle Mosley versus Anisha Basheel has been rescheduled per a tweet from Estelle herself, who stated, "It's time. RDV, Friday, February 17th, I will defend my IBO belt, and for the first time, I will also promote the gala. I told you 2023 would be fire. Let's go."
A few takeaways from this.
A little over a month ago, news broke that the fight between Estelle and Anisha had been called off, and initially, it was supposed to go down in Kinshasa, whereas here today, it looks like it's going down in Estelle Mosley's neck of the woods, over there in France.
Estelle Mosley, the Olympic gold medalist.
A fighter who for a long time now, I've said, seems quite comfortable staying on the outskirts of the sport, being an outlier.
Which isn't what you would expect from an Olympic gold medalist. Someone with Estelle Mosley's background, her pedigree.
You would have thought, given her amateur background, that she would have hit the ground running as a professional, making big leaps and bounds, but that's really not the case with Estelle. And, you know, some of these amateur standouts that have great amateur careers, some of these fighters make better amateurs than professionals.
Yeah, that happens.
Some fighters make better amateur boxers than pro boxers. That happens.
I think I heard something about Estelle seeing about qualifying for the next Olympic Games.
Returning to the amateur ranks. If she is, she's squeezing in a pro fight in between now and then. This rescheduled Anisha Basheel fight. You will also notice that Estelle stated she's not just going to be fighting in the show, she's going to be promoting it, promoting the gala.
It's been a little over a year's time since Estelle Mosley inked a pact with Probellum, the fledgling promotional outfit.
That news broke in January of last year, that Estelle Mosley was going to be fighting under the Probellum Promotions banner moving forward. And if she's promoting her own show,
If she's promoting her next fight,
that would then have to mean that Estelle Mosley, she's only fought once under the Probellum banner, just once, and that relationship has come to a rather abrupt end.
that one fight being the Yanina Lescano fight that took place in March of last year.
She signed to Probellum in January, had a fight in March under the promotional banner, didn't fight again the entirety of the year. She was supposed to have that Anisha Basheel fight in Kinshasa, but who knows if that was even a Probellum show, a Probellum card, it being that Probellum, they ain't got no broadcast partner. They ain't got one in France, they ain't got one in the UK, and they ain't got one in America.
A promotional outfit that ain't got no broadcast partner.
That means they ain't got no broadcast money, no network money, no network budget to bankroll fights and finance them.
There's a lot of smaller promoters. You know, they ain't got TV deals like a Top Rank.
Smaller promotional outfits. There are actually quite a few of those, more than you might think. Though Estelle,
Who sports a professional record of 10 wins with no losses, no draws, just one recorded knockout, one knockout.
seems to me that Probellum couldn't do that much for her. That's the look of it. So she's going her own way, doing her own thing. According to her, she's going to be promoting her own show.
Her next fight.
I've never been all that impressed with Estelle Mosley's boxing, if I'm being honest with you. She's skilled. She's solid enough that she can beat a certain level of fighter. She can beat an Anisha Basheel. She can win a points decision.
She can win a decision.
One thing about Estelle is that she really is more finesse than ferocity. She's a more cerebral fighter that, for my money, seems to lack killer instinct, kind of qualities that you see in an Alicia Baumgartner or Beatrice Ferreira, a Caroline Dubois, who's going to be in action this weekend.
Estelle's good, but she ain't sharp.
I mean, she's good. She's good when you see her. You can see that she knows her way around the ring. She knows what she's doing. But she's missing something.
She's not particularly fast, not particularly strong, not particularly athletic.
She still knows her way around the ring. And up against a certain level of opponent, she can secure the W. She can beat an Anisha Basheel.
So if she does, the question is, what comes after that? After all this time, what is Estelle Mosley building towards?
This is hardly a big fight. It's being billed as a title defense, an IBO title defense. The IBO, God bless them, They're not recognized by the major four sanctioning bodies, the WBA, the WBC, the WBO, and the IBF. Until you're fighting for one of those titles, your profile's
Not going to go anywhere. Estelle Mosley campaigns as a lightweight. That's where Katie Taylor reigns as that division's undisputed champion. There's plenty of high-profile fights that Estelle Mosley could be gunning for if she actually wanted them.
anything from a Katie Taylor fight to an Amanda Serrano fight, Alicia Baumgartner, Terry Harper back when she was still down there, Michaela Mayer, she's still floating around.
Chantel Cameron at 140.
Defending an IBO title communicates to me that Estelle, she's not concerned about those fights. She's not looking for them, at least not right now.
Set to defend her IBO title next week on the 17th. That's Friday.
Estelle on points is the pick, and what she does after that, your guess is as good as mine. Men's super middleweight news, the quote-unquote Mexican monster, David Benavidez, says he wants to be the country's next great fighter.
What about Ecuador?
You don't hear David Benavidez make much mention of his Ecuadorian roots. He is of Mexican descent, but he's also of Ecuadorian descent, which communicates to me that this whole I want to be Mexico's next great fighter is little more than a marketing angle.
I don't blame him. It makes sense to use it.
There's a lot of good Mexican fighters, Benavidez said in an interview with BoxingScene.com and other reporters. I want to follow the line and be added to that list of great Mexican fighters. I'm a Mexican monster. This is how I've fought my whole life. I go in there and I put a beating on people from when I was young till now. Nothing has changed. They can say everything that they want, that I'm flat-footed, that I have no defense, this and that. When they get in the ring with me, they know it's a whole different story. Boxing currently has several great active Mexican fighters and champions, Canelo Alvarez being one among them.
Emmanuel Navarrete being another.
3-division champion Emmanuel Navarrete. Ray Vargas, 2-division champion who's making his bid to become a 3-division champion like his countryman, Emmanuel Navarrete.
Ray's going to be in action this weekend opposite the ring O'Shaquie Foster for what is the vacant WBC title at 130 pounds.
It's a long list, a long line of great Mexican fighters. David aspires to be ranked as one among them. He's got some catching up to do.
Work needs doing.
This is the most motivated I've ever been in my life. I know I want to be a legend. I have to go in there and make a splash. This is the second wind of my career. I've been a professional for 10 years, and I feel that I have another 15 left in me. I'm excited. This is definitely going to be a great fight. I want to knock Plant out. I want his fucking head. He doesn't have confidence in himself. I know exactly what I'm going to do. He's been knocked out before, and I know that I can knock him out. I've hurt everybody that I've been in the ring with ever since I was 13.
And this is going to be no different.
It better not be if he wants to keep up appearances and keep running with this gimmick that he's the quote-unquote Mexican monster. Ever since Mike Tyson on his hot boxing podcast dubbed David Benavidez the quote-unquote Mexican monster, they took that moniker and ran with it. Now they're using it as a marketing angle to give David a bit more personality.
Presence.
Appeal with one of the most influential sets of boxing fans in the American boxing scene here today. The Mexican boxing fan, the Chicano boxing fans.
La raza.
In truth, it's not enough for any fighter, just any fighter of Mexican descent to make it in the American boxing scene. Not every Mexican fighter of Mexican descent has the same following of a Canelo Alvarez or an Oscar De La Hoya before him.
What's consistent with the both of those fighters, the common denominator, is those fighters did fight the vast majority of their contemporaries.
No one fighter, no one boxer can be expected to fight every single guy that's out there, every single guy with that fighter's name in their mouth. It's impossible. They're only human. They're only boxers. They can only fight one guy at a time.
I think the saving grace for David is that Canelo Alvarez has already done most of the legwork at or around these weights. In spite of losing that fight to Dimitri Bivol at light heavyweight, he's still very much the man to beat, in a general sense.
In a very general sense he is, and certainly at super middleweight, where he still reigns as that division's undisputed champion. This upcoming fight between David and Caleb, it's for WBC interim status in order to crown a mandatory challenger for Canelo, though in truth,
If push comes to shove, do you really think the WBC would try to put the squeeze on Canelo Alvarez?
I don't. They've exhibited partial behavior to lesser-known fighters than Canelo, and all the marquee value and hefty sanctioning fees they get from him. Partial treatment for Jermall Charlo, who's been out for close to 2 years, has a mandatory challenger in the queue, yet they've hesitated to order the fight between them, the fight between Jamal and Carlos Adames, WBC interim middleweight champion.
They are not pressuring Jamal to fight his mandatory challenger, so do you think they'd pressure Canelo Alvarez, who brings them even bigger sanctioning fees than inactive Jamal?
You trust the WBC to put the squeeze on him, pressure him to satisfy a mandatory challenger. Do you realize that the last time they did that,
The last time the WBC took a firm stance and tried to enforce a mandatory on Canelo, it was Gennady Golovkin.
circa 2015, 2016, after Canelo beat Miguel Cotto and after Gennady Golovkin unified titles with David Lemieux, they ordered the fight between them, and they were forceful about it, and Canelo Alvarez told them they can take their belt and shove it.
He's only going to fight Gennady Golovkin on his time, on his schedule, not theirs.
For a while, there was a rift between Canelo Alvarez and the WBC. I remember the WBC came up with the Huichol belt.
Huichol people native to Mexico came up with a belt to commemorate the Mexican holiday, and in spite of that, Canelo made his feelings clear. He still didn't want to have nothing to do with the WBC.
It took a while for the WBC to get back in Canelo Alvarez's good graces, and they've been making nice and playing nice ever since the first Golovkin fight.
Even when Canelo Alvarez tested positive for clenbuterol, the WBC asserted Canelo's innocence in order to get back in his good graces.
They asserted his innocence before they had even started their quote-unquote investigation.
Clearly taking a side, clearly brown-nosing to get back in Canelo Alvarez's good graces, and eventually they did.
But it's for that reason that you can't rely on the WBC's mandates to get David Benavidez a Canelo fight. If push comes to shove,
I don't think they're going to prioritize their relationship with David over their relationship with Canelo.
So if you're David Benavidez, you're this Mexican monster, and you want your shot at the big time, you want to be thought of as the Mexican legends of old, what do you do when you're not guaranteed a Canelo fight?
You fight everybody else.
That's reality. In a situation where Canelo Alvarez may be otherwise occupied with another fighter, like, say, Dimitri Bivol, and a rematch between them, David Benavidez's legacy, his claim to fame can't be that I never got to fight Canelo Alvarez.
That's not going to get you in the Hall of Fame.
That by itself won't get you thought of as one of this era's great Mexican fighters, great Mexican boxers. The fights themselves.
That's the only way.
You're on the same side of the street as Jamal Charlo, Demetrius Andrade, and David Morrell, irrespective of a Canelo fight that may not happen.
Because it might not. If Canelo fights Dimitri Bivol for a second time, loses, contemplates retirement.
What are you gonna say, huh? What are you gonna do? That I ain't gotta fight nobody because Canelo didn't fight me?
Is that the story?
While you're on the same side of the street as David Morrell and Jamal Charlo, Demetrius Andrade.
You want to be thought of as a Salvador Sanchez kind of fighter? A Bobby Chacon?
A Juan Manuel Marquez, an Eric Morales, and Marco Antonio Barrera. Your legacy as a fighter cannot be contingent upon one fight, just one fight that you might not have.
It's reality.
We don't even know if David Benavidez is going to fight more than once this year. He only fought once, just once last year. A massive waste of time, in my humble opinion.
Will this year be the same?
You ain't going to be thought of as no legend on that kind of schedule. Sounds good when David Benavidez says that he wants to be thought of as the great Mexican fighters of old, but he's got to actually put the work in before that happens. And beating Caleb Plant after Canelo already knocked him out?
It's gonna take more than that.
Finally, some encouraging news that broke earlier today by way of Chris Mannix. PBC has sent a contract back to Golden Boy that positions Golden Boy as the lead promoter for a rematch between Ryan and Gervonta, sources told Sports Illustrated now. Minor details to be ironed out, but it's expected Garcia versus Davis could be signed as early as today.
And let's say that it is. Let's say that the fight is officially announced by the time that this video is uploaded.
There is still one or two matters that need sorting out. You know, Gervonta Davis, he's got a court date coming up this week and another one towards the tail end of the month. We don't know what's going to happen with any of that.
The car accident case, the domestic dispute with Vanessa Poso.
Like I said, I don't know if by the time this video is uploaded, the fight will be officially announced and the contracts signed. I don't know that Golden Boy will necessarily agree to these revisions.
All of them.
I'm operating on the premise that Golden Boy accepts the revised contract as it is, what happens next and what might affect the fight, those 2 court dates.
I'm not rooting against them, you know. I'm not hoping that they fail.
I would prefer that we get the fight instead of explanations as to why the fight didn't take place. I'm not rooting against them, though it'd be pretty fucking funny if 2 super fights fall apart.
This one and what was supposed to be the Crawford versus Spence fight.
Still, no official word, no official announcement as to when Errol Spence Jr. will be facing Keith Thurman.
That's who he's supposed to be fighting now.
Those 2 super fights, if they were to fall apart, they would have fallen apart on Al Heyman's watch. For one reason or another, that would be 2 separate super fights. 2 separate super fights in sequence that didn't take place when he was tasked to get them over the line.
It's on his watch.
One fight involving a rival promotional outfit and a rival platform, and one fight not involving a rival platform or promoter at all. What was supposed to be the Crawford versus Spence fight. In both of those situations, the common denominator is Al Heyman and his PBC.
So it looks like what it looks like.
Can the grab-assin' Showtime needs this fight a lot more than DAZN does. DAZN's got other stuff going on, you understand. Other big shows, other big events, whereas Showtime, when's the last time they put on a sizable fight, a sizable contest?
We're not talking about those Mickey Mouse shows Gervonta Davis has been putting on. Those Mickey Mouse numbers. 4 out of 5 of Gervonta Davis's pay-per-views didn't crack 200,000 buys.
Based on Stefan Espinosa's recent admission that the Hector Luis Garcia pay-per-view,
It's Gervonta Davis's second highest pay-per-view.
only behind the Rolly Romero fight. And according to Stefan, the Hector Luis Garcia pay-per-view didn't crack 200,000 buys. So that means the other 3, not including the Rolly Romero fight, the other 3 fights.
The other 3, 4 pay-per-views, they didn't crack 200,000 pay-per-view buys. This is Gervonta Davis's best bet to be in a big fight. A real big fight.
They need this because they're the ones that insist on charging the consumer, the fight fan, $80 at a time every time Gervonta Davis fights.
Why should I pay $80 to see him? Who's he fighting?
There's been no official announcement. Not yet. And I wonder that they won't hold off on making an official announcement for this fight between Ryan and Gervonta until Gervonta's legal proceedings are settled.
It would be less than ideal to enter into this situation, make an official announcement.
Start ramping up promotion and scheduling press conferences at a time where Gervonta Davis has 2 separate court dates pending. And we don't know what's going to happen with that. We don't know if that kid's going to see time.
He might.
How are you supposed to start ramping up promotion, start trying to sell this thing when he's got that stuff hanging over him?
They don't even really have a whole lot of time to sell this fight, you know.
They don't. They've got 2 months, approximately 2 months from now till April 15th. What you're looking at is 2 months.
Is that really enough time to promote this thing? Promote this thing properly?
Whether it is or it isn't, that's what they've got. A limited window of opportunity.
So, you know, they might have revised the contract, but we're not out of the woods yet.